What's up, everybody? You're tuning in to BottomLineSports.net, serving up deeper insight on everything sports. Roger Federer beat Andy Murray to win Wimbledon on Sunday, tying him with legend Pete Sampras and his 7 titles at the All England Club. Serena Williams, in similar fashion, returned to the top of the mountain by claiming her first major title since Wimbledon in 2010. But I'll explain how Federer's victory will have a long-lasting impact on the sport of tennis. I'll discuss the questions that arose from it, like whether or not Federer solidified his status as the best player in history, and did we see Andy Murray's last chance to break through for the British at Wimbledon and get the monkey off his back to claim his first Grand Slam title at the same time. Now, Sunday was bound to be a big day for tennis one way or the other. When Roger Federer took the court against Andy Murray, both players might as well have had big-ass pens in their hands, not rackets, because both players were going to rewrite history one way or the other no matter who won. It was amazing to see the support that Federer had. Murray's winners definitely produced a more raucous reaction, but they weren't that much louder than the positive reaction Federer was getting in his good moments. As a sports fan, it was special to see such passionate emotions from an emotional crowd, and you'd expect that. After all, this is the All England Club, and these are the 2 players in the game that are most likely to draw the most attention from that crowd in particular. Federer is considered the best player of all time, but he's also considered to be the best player on grass, the surface that tennis originated on. That's what puts even more pressure on Murray. There's countries that haven't ever had a champion win any major. An Australian hasn't won the Australian Open since 1976. A Frenchman hasn't won the French Open since 1983. But we're talking about a country that is widely considered the birthplace of tennis, and it doesn't have a champion since 1936, people. But while a great number of people want to see that curse lifted, a lot more people want to see the greatest player to possibly ever grace that surface cement his dominance there. And I think a good amount of that support comes from the fact that Federer plays with a style that many around the world consider to be the most pure style of tennis. The fluidity, the variety, and the shot making. He has his following because he's arguably the best tennis player of all time, but also because he showcases the game the way it was first envisioned. Anyways, Murray seemed like he was well on his way to victory after winning the first set. He hadn't won a single set in any of the other 3 trips he's made to the finals of a major, so that was a great sign for him and his fans. But Federer got things going in the second set when he fought to even things up. Then his game really seemed to take off once the roof closed. That was the first Wimbledon final, by the way, played with the roof closed, as the roof was introduced to center court in 2009. But he seemed to be the aggressor the rest of the way, and it seemed like every improbable shot that Federer made chipped away at Murray's confidence. That's the interesting thing about the perspective of tennis. Some fans can't gravitate to tennis the way they do with football and soccer because it's not rugged enough. More often than not in football, it's glorified to be a sport in which you can take the heart out of the opponent with physical intimidation. But in tennis, Federer showed how you can take the heart out of the opponent with skillful intimidation. And while some mock at tennis's elegance, sometimes that same elegance can devastate a player just like a big hit in football. Federer's backhanded drop volley to win the second set was a great example of that, and Federer would go on to win the last 2 sets after that. It's really not like Murray played a bad match, but Murray's serve is partly what let him down. He ended up hitting 90 aces in this tournament, which was good for second best on the men's side. But against Federer, his first serve deteriorated as the match went on. He won 73% of his first serves in the first set and 77% in the second, which he lost but was still very competitive in. But in the third and fourth set, the wheels came off of his first serves. He only won 47% of them in the third set, and then only 67% of them in the fourth set. Meanwhile, Federer took his serve to a whole new level. He made 88% of them in the third set, and then 76% of them in the fourth. Just as big was Federer's aggressiveness and shot-making ability, and after the match, he told reporters that he came to understand how he'll be able to win in the latter stages of his career, and that's to be aggressive and not wait for the opponent to make a mistake. Federer said, quote, "This year I guess I decided in the bigger matches to take it more to my opponent instead of waiting a bit more for the mistakes. Yeah, this is I guess how you want to win Wimbledon, is by going after your shots, believing you can do it, and that's what I was able to do today." End quote. For the match, FedEx had 62 winners, and he also had 29 more chances at the net, converting 78% of them. The high number of winners and high number of net point chances came as a direct result of Federer letting his racket fly, something people always urge Murray to do but never does. I've read that Murray is a perfectionist and hates unforced errors, so instead of hitting shots that flirt with the line, he takes the easy route and hits the ball closer to the middle of the court. That's not going to cut it, and is a fear that Murray has to overcome if he's going to win on the big stages. For Federer, it was his 17th major title, extending his record for career Grand Slam victories. He also surpasses Novak Djokovic to once again become the number one player in the world and ties Sampras for the most weeks at number one with 286 weeks. More important than anything, the win may have given Federer an undisputable argument for being the best player in tennis history. Roger is about to turn 31 in August, but showed that he still has some juice left in him. Who knows if this is his last major victory, but regardless, it's hard to say he's not the best ever. His 17 major titles are 3 more than Sampras ever had. He's won every major at least once, the French Open once, and the other 3 at least 4 times. But winning the most prestigious one 7 times and equaling Sampras' success there, that may be the clincher. I mean, how do you argue with that resume? The answer is you can't. Not now, no way. So the most significant thing about Sunday's final revealed an unmistakable proof of evidence that Roger Federer is the greatest tennis player of all time. Meanwhile, Murray, while holding back tears, said it would be hard to rebound from this loss. All the headlines, all the criticism of Murray throughout the years, it's not easy to deal with. Ask LeBron James, who admitted that he did a better job of tuning things out this year than he ever did in the past. Murray has been dealing with the same. That's why I simply didn't believe Mark Cuban when he said pro athletes don't care what's being written or said about them in the media and elsewhere. In the on-court interview after the match, Murray said, quote, "I played better this time in the final, and that's the main thing. It's not an easy tournament for British players in many ways, but I think I dealt with all of the extra things away from the tournament pretty well, better than maybe I had done in the past." End quote. One thing I wonder about is how much confidence Andy Murray really took from this tournament. After all, he didn't take down any of tennis's big 3 in the tourney. He's not the one who beat Rafael Nadal, and he's not the one who beat Novak Djokovic. He was pitted against Joe-Wilfried Tsonga in the semifinal, a very admirable foe, but clearly not on the level of Federer, Djokovic, or Nadal, who have all, just those 3 guys, they've won every major title since the 2005 Australian Open, with the exception of the 2009 US Open, which was won by Juan Martín del Potro. The fact that Murray didn't win a Grand Slam is disheartening, but it's made even more disheartening to Murray when considering he didn't beat any of those top 3 players that have a stranglehold on tennis at the moment. My belief is that he did get something out of it, but whether it's enough for him to win his first major title is yet to be seen, because it doesn't look like Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic are exactly fading at the moment. But I do think Murray will win a Grand Slam. He's at least in the discussion when it comes to winning every major, except for the French Open, really. So I agree with Roger Federer, who actually said Murray will at least win 1 slam. But I said in the intro that I believe Federer's win at Wimbledon will have a long-lasting impact on tennis, and it's not just Federer's victory, but it's Murray's defeat that will also contribute to that impact, or lack thereof, in the next several years. As great as it is for Federer to lay one more stamp down in the record books, a new one from a 4th contender would have only contributed to the same exact thing that has taken tennis to such great heights in recent years. A little bit of parity is good for sports, and that parity emerged in tennis when Rafa began to challenge Roger. That rivalry was incredible for tennis, and it put it back in people's minds the way it was when Sampras and Agassi had their rivalry. And the more contenders you have, the more exciting it is for any sport. That's what the NBA is enjoying right now. A lot of people argue that the big markets are dominating pro basketball. Well, yeah, but the NBA champion is getting harder and harder to predict these days. Last year, no one would have thought the Mavericks would end up the champion. This year was the Heat and the Thunder. But people would have been surprised. I mean, really, people wouldn't have been surprised if the Celtics, the Spurs, the Lakers, or Mavericks would have made it this year. Plus, you have dangerous teams like the Pacers, Clippers, Grizzlies, who don't seem too far off. And the Bulls will be back next year with D. Rose. Too much parity, in my opinion, can take some credibility out of the sport, but when you have lots of proven champions, that's an awesome thing. You could say tennis is in a golden age with 3 future Hall of Famers battling for supremacy, and it could have added a 4th contender if Murray managed to win Sunday. I'm not saying tennis will suffer because Murray lost, but a Murray win would have added that much more intrigue to the sport. Going forward and looking into that crystal ball, I really think Federer, as usual, has all the tools to be successful. The questions surrounding him are all centered around his age and whether his back can hold up. He's always had the confidence in his ability. It's just a matter of being able to play at 100%, play with his uncanny variety, and stay aggressive like he said he realized he needs to be. On the other hand, Djokovic and Nadal both have some soul-searching to do on their ends. Novak is a lot better than he showed in his 4-set loss to Federer. On grass, Djokovic should be able to give anybody a better match than that. For whatever reason, Djokovic, by far the best returner in the game, struggled with Federer's serve big time in the semifinals. Djokovic only broke Fed in one time and only 3 opportunities. If you look at the serving statistics in the second set, which is the set that Novak did win, compared to the others, it's like night and day. Federer's serve was on fire in every set but the second. Meanwhile, Djokovic won an astounding 93% of his first serve points in that second set, but did much worse in the 3 other sets. Djokovic had 2 flaws in his game before his incredible run last year. Number 1, his mentality, and number 2, his serve. It doesn't seem like his mentality is going by the wayside at all, but he does have to revisit his serve and make sure it doesn't reemerge as a problem before the US Open. As for Nadal, Rafa said that he didn't have the right inspiration after his stunning second-round loss to Czech Lucas Rizol. That's unheard of and unsettling for Nadal fans who could hang their hat on the fact that if Nadal lost, it was never because he didn't have the right inspiration. I've considered whether Nadal was paying too much attention to Spain in the Euro Cup because he's a huge soccer fan, who knows. But I believe Nadal has something else he has to change if he's going to win any Grand Slam not called the French Open. The southpaw has to consider doing away with his trademark spin. Yeah, believe it or not, I believe he does. Nadal relied on wearing out his opponents with a shallow, high-bouncing ball that players were being forced to hit uncomfortably at shoulder level. However, it seems like players have adjusted and are taking advantage of how high and short Nadal's ground strokes are, and opponents are gaining great court position and getting great time to wait on the ball, size it up, and hit it with pace. Nadal is getting overpowered now, and that's partly because advancements in technology have developed rackets with pop, and even relatively weaker players are benefiting from that. Tennis is becoming a sport where MPHs dominate. Federer's serve is big when it needs to be. Djokovic's forehand and backhand are both big when he needs them to be. I feel like Nadal has to sacrifice his spin for more raw velocity. The problem is Nadal has enjoyed all his success with that spin, so whether he decides to change his approach is a complete mystery. He also has to worry about his style deteriorating his health. With that, I'm going to come back to Federer to wrap up the show. As I was thinking about Nadal's style of play, it reminded me of why people said Federer couldn't handle Nadal. Nadal's athleticism and pedal-to-the-metal mindset was said to be just what the doctor ordered to beat Federer. But the bottom line is, maybe the reason Federer has earned so much support and admiration from past legends is the fact that they know if anyone is going to equal Federer's unparalleled accomplishments, that player will have to replicate his traditional style of tennis, the grace and touch as opposed to the grind and pound. Federer winning Wimbledon only a month shy of 31 years old on Sunday goes a long way in proving just that. Thanks for tuning in to BottomLineSports.net with me, Talal Masri. I'm going to make a few changes soon as to how I'll be presenting my videos on YouTube. I just now started putting my podcasts on here as videos, so I'm still in a transition period and figuring out how I can reach you guys the best. Anyways, make sure to visit the new Facebook wall for Bottom Line Sports. You can subscribe to all my podcasts in iTunes. Still working on getting the icon for that on the homepage of BLS. You can also find me on Twitter at TSunSports. Please make sure to make your voice heard and leave a comment. That's it for today. I'm out.